our interests are very much aligned on what we're trying to do to improve our sustainable programs and recycling. I usually get to talk in front of people as the general manager for EDCO. We talk trash a lot, and people often take that the wrong way. But today I'm kind of excited to talk food since it's a lunch event anyway. So it is really something near and dear to our hearts. I personally have a lot of passion around this topic, and I'm really honored to be here to share this, what EDCO is doing with the rolling out of some of the latest food recycling programs across the county. As you know, there's been a lot of changes in the regulations. I'm going to touch on that a little bit as to what's driving this. We'll talk about the investment EDCO's making, but more importantly, I want to spend time talking really about how you and I can participate together to kick these programs off in our homes and our businesses and really create a culture here that supports the recycling of organic waste. It's something that's been long overdue. It's been coming. We've talked a lot about it, but it's here now, and we all get to figure out how we're going to do this and do it effectively, help change behaviors. And that's really what this amounts to in a big way, is helping the folks to change behaviors. Those of you who've been around a little while, just go back probably 25 years when we were talking about AB 939, which was the first really broad recycling program and legislation initiated by the state of California. We came to our constituents, the residents, businesses, and said we have to now separate bottles and cans and paper, cardboard, newspapers, if you remember what that was. And we used to, we said we got to separate that from our trash, and people were all worked up about that. It's like, oh my gosh, we have to separate these things now. We gave everybody 3 containers, if you remember, at your home. You had to put your bottles and cans in one, and newspapers in one, and cardboard in the other one. And that was a big task, and oh my gosh, it just changed our lives, right? Well, fast forward, we're all great at recycling our bottles and cans and paper and cardboard. We've done a wonderful job. The infrastructure's there. People do it really, really well. So here we are now, fast forwarding to the new phase, the next phase of recycling, and it's around organics. Organics makes up a very large portion of our waste stream, and I'll show you a slide here that state of California has put together. Talks about 27 million tons of organic waste is disposed of in the state of California. 27 million tons. It's broken down, organics is frankly much larger than just food waste. As we take a look at the spectrum, food itself consists of 18% of the waste stream, which is still substantial. Almost 20% of our waste stream that we dispose of is food. Organics consists also of paper and lumber, wood products, and there's other organics in the form of carpeting, for example, sludges, things like that that are produced industrially, but they are all organically composed products or materials that, when put in a landfill, break down and produce what's called methane gas. Methane gas is one of the most toxic and impacting greenhouse gases that does impact our environment and our air quality. And so the state of California rightly has targeted the reduction of organics in landfills in legislation I'm going to talk about in a second. But something that I think is really important to keep in mind in our initiative is that there's a lot of folks in our state that are food insecure. And the most recent legislation that's driving the food waste recycling initiative across the state is really being driven on 2 agendas. One, let's get the greenhouse gases reduced by getting organics out of landfills. And 2, let's take food that's still edible and let's help deal with food insecurity. 1 in 8 Californians are food insecure, and it includes many children. There's a lot of folks out there that could use this food. And if any of you have worked in the restaurant industry or even the grocery industry, you know there's a lot of food left over that is often disposed of that is still edible and could be used if gotten into the hands of the right people at the right time. So I'll talk a little bit about that, but there's going to be a lot more coming forward soon to address food insecurity along with the recycling that we're talking about today. So the legislation that California has passed over the last several years was really 2-pronged. The first one was referred to as AB 1826, which was a mandatory commercial organics recycling law. This was aimed at commercial businesses, and this is way back in 2016 that the state of California said, let's target businesses and say, thou shalt recycle your food waste. It was a great initiative, great idea. Unfortunately, what happened is we didn't have any place to take it. Yes, there was composting out there, and there's some commercial compost sites, a lot of I'll call it backdoor or backyard composting that many of you have done and others have done. But to deal with it in a large scale, we really didn't have an infrastructure to process that much food waste that would have been captured from all the businesses. And so while the law was in place, there really wasn't a lot of initiative or activity there, I should say. Further, there wasn't much teeth in that law. It basically just said, thou shalt do it. Didn't have any penalties. So a few years later, the legislature in California said, let's pass another law that has teeth, and that became SB 1383. You'll hear a lot about SB 1383 because it's a very broad-reaching piece of legislation. It's frankly one of the biggest pieces I've ever worked on. Instead of calling it commercial organics recycling, they targeted it as a short-lived climate pollutants law, which again targets getting methane out of the landfills. They gave some specific targets. In 2020, you're supposed to reduce the amount of organics going into landfills by 50%. Unfortunately, we didn't make it. And why we didn't make it is because we didn't have that infrastructure in place yet. There's another target of 2025 to reduce it by 75%. And that's something we hope we can still make a big dent in. Also by 2025 is when we've targeted now this law to have a 20% increase in food recovery of edible food. So those are some very strong components of the legislation. The regulation actually takes effect officially on January 1st, 2022. So we've got the remainder of this year to get ready for it. But this law impacts everything. It's not just directed at commercial organics recycling. It covers everything from residential, commercial, industrial. It covers all of the things besides food I mentioned earlier, wood and certainly green waste. The various things that we put in the landfills all have to come out that are organically, that would decompose there. So it's a very broad piece of legislation. The other thing I'll mention about this is that it has teeth in it. Starting in 2024, there's an enforcement component that cities have to enforce. And if they don't, the state of California can come in and enforce it. And while they're not going to run around to everybody's house and start issuing you tickets for putting food in your trash, it will put the onus on the cities. And the cities may face $10,000 a day fines if they don't take this seriously and truly roll out a significant program around this law. Some of the things that are required as part of this law that, again, are far-reaching is we have to provide collection services to all residents and businesses, as I mentioned. We have to provide very extensive community outreach and education. There has to be access to edible food recovery capacity. So while we say, well, gee, there's people out there that are hungry, the whole network of capturing food that's still edible, perhaps at a grocery store or a restaurant, requires really an extensive network of communication and delivery. The food won't last forever, as you might know. So we have to find a way to get it into the hands of those who need it quickly. And so there's going to be quite an effort really put on the backs of the cities to establish that network. They also have a procurement program just to create and close the loop for the organics recycling. The cities are being pressured to come up with ways that they can buy, for example, more compost, more mulch, more of the products that we create, and put it back into the community. They have to buy recycled paper to create a demand for more fiber recycling and recovery. And then there's an extensive monitoring, reporting, and as I mentioned earlier, enforcement component to this law that the cities will take the lead on, but we will also be involved in going around and actually inspecting businesses. And it's not that we're going to go around as a policeman and say, hey, you're not recycling your organics properly. We'll go around more to help them identify what they have and what their options are. One of the things that we plan to do with all the businesses as we visit them is to show them how they can reduce their trash service costs when they recycle their organics. Obviously, we're not creating more organics. We're simply removing it or moving it from the trash can to the recycling can. And as we do that effectively, we should be able to reduce their trash costs and mitigate some of the costs of this program. So EDCO, what's EDCO doing? What are we up to? over in Escondido at our EDI facility, it stands for Escondido Disposal, we saw this law coming and decided 8 years ago to start planning for it. We built what's called an anaerobic digester. It's a large organics processing facility. You can see the picture of it here. Those 4 tanks that you see, those green tanks, those are digesters. They are designed to anaerobically break down a combination of green waste and food waste, and basically convert it into renewable natural gas, the methane, as well as a nutrient-rich digestate or soil additive that we pull off as a result of this process, and we put it back into the useful cycle, whether it be in agriculture for the digestate, and as far as renewable natural gas, we'll be cleaning it up, put it in a pipeline, and then we'll be taking it out and use it to power all of our trucks. So in the future, all of our garbage trucks, recycling trucks, be coming up and down the street running on gas created from the recycling of our food and other organics. Here's a description of that cycle of how anaerobic digestion works. I think many of you may understand the term aerobic organic decomposition, and that's what composting is all about. In the backyards, if you do composting, you take your organic scraps, you put them in a pile and you turn them periodically as they break down naturally. And that turning process introduces oxygen in there, and the oxygen with the microbes and the organic food or materials break down to a nice soil. That's because they require air. In our situation, air is a bad thing, oxygen that is. And so in an anaerobic environment inside these tanks, there's no oxygen. It's the bacteria or microbes function on the basis of no oxygen. They're trained, or they've grown to consume and break down organics in that environment, and they produce the methane gas. And the methane gas is something I mentioned earlier that we capture, we clean it up, purify it. We actually have to get it cleaner than the pipeline. So when you turn on your stoves or your furnaces and there's gas being used there, the quality of that gas is great. What we put in the pipeline has to be greater in order to do that. And so we will put it in the pipeline, and then again, as I mentioned, we'll pull it out and use it to power our trucks. But the whole purpose of this is to create a carbon neutral or carbon negative environment that means that we don't rely on fossil fuels anymore, and we're helping to reduce greenhouse gases and improve the air quality overall. Statistically, it's shown that this digester will remove the equivalent of 7,000 cars, the emissions equivalent to 7,000 cars on the road each year. So it does have a significant impact. We're really proud to have this facility built. In fact, this is a little bit timeline of how it was constructed. You can see inside those tanks, there's a big long shaft and it has paddles on it, and it turns the material over, rotates it inside the machine, the tank, so to speak, and then work it through over a period of 14 days is typical residence time. So when we put the material in, the combined green waste, food waste, over the course of 14 days, it breaks down, and then we can remove it and take it to the next stage. Here's a current picture of it. We built only 2 of the tanks. There's room for 2 more. The first 2 are actually operational right now. The first one on the right was our first one. We started it up about 6 weeks ago. It takes a better part of 2 to 3 months to condition the microbes. They start up kind of slowly as you feed them, and they grow on each other. If you've ever made sourdough bread, you know how you can take a piece of it and then it grows into the dough, and then you can take a piece and you keep growing it more. Well, that's kind of what's happening inside the tanks. And we just started feeding the second tank with microbes, and we're growing them in that tank to be able to accommodate more materials. So it's a slow ramp up, but we're already putting residential green waste and food waste that is coming from our cities, including Solana Beach right now. So it's a large facility. We're designed to handle 180,000 tons a year. So it's designed really for most of San Diego County, at least North County for sure. And as we continue to expand into the city of San Diego, we have actually another facility already permitted to build another site like this if the need arises. So we're trying to anticipate this need particularly for our North County cities, including Solana Beach and Encinitas and the coastal cities there. So what's EDCO doing as far as the collection side? Well, we started off with an educational campaign, and I hope some of you saw some of our literature mailed to your houses. We're just now starting to send some out to the businesses as well. But we started with just making folks aware through our coming soon brochures, our Environmental Times newsletter that we send out from time to time, was hoping to get people aware of the law and the facilities that we're building, and that you all will be participating in this shortly. And then we sent other mailers that talk more specifically about how you can do this in your home. And we've had follow-up materials. We're working with the cities on more workshops similar to something like this, where we can get out in a broader group to get the message out. And we're, of course, using social media as much as we can. COVID has definitely came along at all the wrong time, because we wanted to have a lot more community events, and we're kind of limited on that in the latter part of last year, but we're optimistic now we'll be able to get out and get around and do more of these workshops. As far as our commingle program residentially, we are, again, combining food waste with green waste. When we first thought about this program, the last thing we wanted to do was to ask people to acquire or give them a fourth container. You already have, in many cases, a trash can or cart, a recycling blue cart. You probably have, in many cases, a green waste cart already, and to give you a fourth one would have been something that would have been challenging for room space considerations, but also just adding another truck to go down the road. So we designed the program. We said, let's combine the food waste and the green waste together in one container. That way we weren't adding any more containers or trucks to go down the street. So that was great. We already have the green waste carts out there residentially. Now we have to say, okay, folks, how do you get the material from your kitchen and into the green waste cart? And that's where we developed and identified this kitchen caddy, we call it. It's just a plastic container that can go in your kitchen, and you can separate the food there, capture it before it goes in your trash bag, and hopefully we can get it recycled. The challenge with many recycling programs like this is that some communities do allow bags, and plastic bags are a problem for us. The digester doesn't break them down. They end up in the digestate, and it's a real challenge to get it out after it's been incorporated. So we are being pretty insistent that there's no plastic bags or no biodegradable bags. And biodegradable bags is one that catches a lot of attention, because folks say, well, they do break down when you compost them or digest them. And you're right, they do, but they need a long time. If any of you have tried to use biodegradable bags in your compost pile, you've probably found that it does take at least a month, if not months, to break down into pieces. And for it to really disappear, it takes quite a long time. We only have a residence time of 14 days, so bags are something that we're just asking folks not to use, and instead just try to put it. You can use paper bags. Paper bags are great. They break down very well. In fact, in my home, we go to Trader Joe's or we go to some grocery stores, and we ask for paper bags, and we just put our food in there from the caddy to the bag and take it right out to our green waste and incorporate it with our yard clippings. So this is the caddy that we've offered. As I've mentioned to many of you, you can request one. If you don't have it, you can request it online and we'll deliver it right to your house. I'll talk more about some other options here in a second, but if you do get one of our caddies, you can mount it underneath your kitchen sink if you wish. I don't. I just leave it right next to my trash can. And when I'm preparing meals, my wife and I, we just put it on the counter, open it up, and we just make sure the scraps all go in there. But it's quite simple. You can put food scraps in there. I'll talk more about what else can go in there, but the one thing is specifically we want to mention is food soiled paper can be added. Any kinds of napkins, paper plates, paper cups, anything like that you might use to wipe down a plate, whatever it is, you can just leave that napkin or the paper towel, put it right in the caddy. It can go out with the food scraps. And it really reduces the amount of trash you have significantly. If you watch for paper components or products that are soiled, you can move it into the green waste cart, and it really does help reduce things. Many of you are really good at separating food in your kitchens already. You may have your own method. You may have your own bucket or a specialized container. We're not here to say you got to use any particular one. Whatever works for you is fine. What we want to advocate is just that folks have some kind of device some means to separate the food so you can get it out to the green waste cart. We talk about wrapping the scrap. This is something we do. We recommend if you don't. You can, if you have paper, for example, the paper you're looking here actually came in Amazon boxes as stuffing. It's paper. It's craft paper. You can spread it out, put the food in there, wrap it up, and take it out to your green waste cart and drop it in there. There's a lot of things you can do. Some folks actually freeze their food waste in a container merely to control odors if they're concerned about that. But whatever container works for you, go ahead and use it. What can we take? Well, in the residential programs, we can take pretty much anything that's green waste, of course, all of your yard clippings and things you've been putting in your green cart already. But as far as the food side of it, we can put just about any kind of food in there. There really isn't anything that we've identified we can't take. For example, we can take meat and bones. We can take bacon grease is one that's been asked from time to time, coffee grounds, the paper products, as I mentioned already, anything soiled like that can go in there. There really isn't anything, like I said, we can not take. One word of caution when it comes to wood, and that is any treated or painted wood. We've asked folks to keep that out purely because it impacts the digestate quality on the back end. And there are other ways to recycle those if you have them. As far as commercial, some of you may run businesses and are asking, well, gee, I live in a condo or I have a business. What's going to happen to me? And this is coming to your world as well. We rolled out the residential program first because we all have those green carts. So that started the 1st of March in Solana Beach and the coastal communities there. Encinitas is actually a little bit later. They're coming in June, but the rest of them have rolled out. The businesses we're going to roll out in Q3 and Q4. Multifamily will be a similar time frame, and we'll be working closely with all of the owners, managers of these facilities, with our representatives who will be coming in and meeting with them and showing them how to do this and how to separate the material and reduce your costs. Commercially, it's a little different. They have things that they generate that include more manufactured type products as well. Certainly restaurants have much larger quantities of cooked foods and prep foods in the kitchens and delis, but there's also on the distribution side and manufacturing side, damaged food or overrun packaging, things that they have, and we'll be working with them again to manage much larger quantities of things that come out of those environments there. So what happens? We're asking folks to commingle both at home as well as businesses. So when we say commingle in your green waste cart, it truly means that. Some folks have said, well, how do I mix these together? It's up to you. It doesn't matter. There's no real pattern. We have said if you're concerned about odors, put your food on the bottom and put your scraps on, or your yard waste scraps on top. But I've been doing this for quite a while and I haven't seen anything that matters really. Just mix them together is fine. Odors have not been an issue, at least in my household, and we have normal household of family members and whatnot. The carts, the lids shut tight. It's very difficult, if not impossible, for our animals to get in there. I know that's a big concern, but the carts are designed with an overlapping lid that wraps over, and it's hard for an animal to get its nose under it and open it. So we've not seen this to become an issue with putting food in a green waste cart. And if you do have issues where you've put food in there and something leaked and it has created an odor, perhaps in the middle of the summer, you can always wash your cart. We recommend just take it to a yard if you have a yard and turn it over and wash it out with soap and water and let it dry and you're good to go. But there are some tips that we've sent out in our literature, and we urge you to read through the literature, and you'll find a few more things you can do. On the business side, we're actually going to be collecting a lot of their food as source separated food, which simply means they don't have green waste. Most grocery stores don't have green waste, of course. Restaurants don't. So we're going to be providing them with containers, separate carts and bins to put their food in, and we'll be able to take their food in a packaged format. The reason I say that is we put in a separate machine in our Escondido facility that's designed to depackage food. For example, the picture on the left there, you see something that came out of a grocery store that was outdated. And we're not going to have grocery store workers sit there and open up every package. It's impossible. So the machine is designed to actually take that and mechanically open that and separate the food from the packaging. And then we can incorporate that food component into our digester with the green waste. So there'll be a separate collection for the restaurants and these larger generators, so to speak. So what's the timeline going forward? We expect to have well, we've already done the education outreach in most of the communities, in Solana Beach in particular. The residential component has rolled out, and we're continuing to deliver caddies to anyone who still requests them. Again, they're free. We just have to have you log in on our website and request one, and we'll get it delivered to your home. We'll continue with outreach activities, and this isn't going to stop. Outreach will continue for months and months and months as we find ways to help folks understand the program, find out how to participate, and encourage them to continue to move the organics out of their trash and into their recycling container. As I mentioned already, Q3 and Q4 is when we'll focus on the commercial side and expand overall participation. So that's kind of what we're doing. I know folks have asked, gee, can I come see that digester and tour it? There will be some opportunities to do that probably in the future, likely next year sometime. But initially, we're working hard to get the thing up and running well, and we'll focus on those opportunities sometime in the future. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions if you have some for me. And I will stop sharing this if helpful.
Thank you so much. Kathleen, are you keeping track of questions? Otherwise, I can do that.
I am. And thank you, Jim. That was really informative. I think most of the questions that we gathered and submitted prior to the meeting, I think you addressed. So thank you very much. The one I see, and I know this is a question I have, I'm mainly the gardener, but the guy who helps me mow the lawn will pick up pet poop with a shovel and just put it in the green bin. And you specifically said not to do that anymore. And I wondered if you could explain why. Yeah,
well, I'll be very frank and honest with everybody. Pet poop and green waste and food waste combined in a digester actually works quite well. If you hid it in your green waste and we didn't see it, okay. But here's our issue, and reason we said that we prefer you don't do that is because what typically happens is folks collect it in a plastic bag,
right?
Throw the bag in the green waste, and the plastic bag is something we don't want. Two, we do process the stuff when it comes in, and what I mean by that is we have employees that are picking out contaminants, and when they have to touch that or empty those bags, we all know there's an exposure concern there that we really don't want to risk. So that's why we're asking folks not to include it.
Okay, understood. The one other question that came in, maybe a couple more. So you mentioned using paper. Is parchment paper okay to go into the green bins?
Yes, parchment paper is okay. Yes.
And given that we're using paper to collect waste, can all newspapers now go in the green bin, or do we continue to put old newspapers in recycling?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, because we didn't want to confuse folks. If you have clean paper, newspaper, ledger paper, cardboard, all of that should still get recycled in your blue cart, as long as it's clean and not contaminated. We were always get questions in the past when we have pizza boxes. Everybody said, well, gee, I got a cardboard pizza box. Can I put it in my blue recycling cart? And we tell them no, only because it was likely contaminated with cheese or sauce or something from the pizza. Today, your pizza box can go in your green container. So we can recycle those pizza boxes now. Any box or paper that's soiled with food can be recycled in the green cart, but anything that's clean should still go in the blue cart.
Okay, great. And then we had a question come in about apartment and condo residents. Do they have a green bin option at this point?
Some do, most don't. And they typically hire landscapers to come in and cut their grass, trim their bushes, and they take it away for them. But as part of phase 2, we're going to be contacting all of the property managers and offices at apartments, condos, to set up a program that makes sense for them. Some of them that do have green waste collection today, it'll be very easy. We'll provide caddies to those residents, and they can do just what our single family residents do, and that's incorporate food into their green waste bin. But those that don't, will be providing separate containers for them and instructions on how to participate in the program. We just knew that required a little more hands-on attention to design a program that fits that condo complex or that apartment complex.
So what do you think the timing is for the condo and apartment solutions?
They'll probably start hearing something from us by summer or early fall.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. Betsy, are you seeing any more questions come in?
Christine Williams had an interesting one.
Right.
Is it better to put the food in green waste than to use the garbage disposal?
Good question. Well, if you talk to the wastewater treatment plant operators, they would say, put it in the green waste cart. They really don't like us putting it down the sewer, although it is helpful, but they really don't want a lot of food coming down the garbage disposal. So here's what I recommend. If you've got wet food, for example, a soup or something that's pretty, let's say a spaghetti sauce or something like that that's left over, put it down the drain. But if you can capture the solid material or anything that's relatively dry, put it in your caddy and get it in your green waste cart if you can.
And Jim, there have been a couple questions about how do you get the kitchen caddies. I believe the answer is you go to your website and order it. And I think one of our participants said that she got hers almost within a day or two.
Yeah, good.
So we'll make sure that everybody on the call, we will be publishing a replay of this whole session on the Historical Society website, and we'll make sure to get that link out again for the kitchen caddy, so you can order your kitchen caddies. Great.
Thank you.
Well, at this point, we're thinking a lot of people.
I got a question that I keep putting in the chat. I don't know why you're not seeing it, but what about burger wrappers from fast food? Are they too waxy?
We're doing some work on that right now. I think that the answer, I think, is likely yes, you can put a burger wrapper in there. What we're finding that, and I'm grateful for this, that many manufacturers of the paper products are creating products that are not wax coated, but they have a polyethylene coating on them. And the polyethylene coating is just a very light, thin layer of something that breaks down fairly well. So I'll give you some, let's see if I can give you an example. Oh, I'll give you an example, paper plates. If you look at, and I'll just use this brand, Dixie paper plates, they're paper on the back, you turn it over, you see it's a fibrous paper plate. On the front, it's kind of glossy with some print typically. And we did testing on that and checked with the manufacturer, and sure enough, it's just coated with polyethylene. It breaks down fine. It's not wax. So paper plates, paper cups that are kind of glossy, those are just fine. And I think as you look at some of these paper wrappers, most of them are converting over to this. Some of them are even vegetable-based coatings, which are even better. But most of them are going to be fine. If you truly see that it feels waxy or it's thicker, something that you tell is likely a wax material, best not to put that in there.
Thank you so much.
Betsy, are we seeing any other questions?
Yeah, there are some. Thank you for the persistent people saying, look back at the previous questions. So there was, a question about avocado seeds. I would assume they're good, right? They
are. We may end up with a whole bunch of seeds left over in our digestate that we produce. But the reason we say they're okay is because we grind everything up into small pieces when we get it, and it will break those seeds up, and they will break down in the digester. Okay, and then one more just about the waxed paper or parchment paper. So parchment paper is not waxy, so that should be fine. Waxed paper is wax, right? Not polyethylene. Yeah, and we're going to do more testing. We keep trying to test more products to expand the whole I guess the list of things that we can take. But wax paper, I'd encourage you to keep out for now. Okay. Sorry.
Katie had a question. Was she able to ask hers?
What was it?
Katie had her hand up for a while.
Oh, I can't see hands. I'm sorry. I'm only looking in the chat. Katie,
I just wanted to make a comment. I'm really, really excited about the food recovery part of your mission, and I think that's wonderful. I just wanted to make a quick comment. I don't know. I know somebody who works very closely with the homeless and providing food to them, and the big problem that they've run into is that the law requires refrigerated trucks to move this stuff. And so I don't know if you've gotten to that point, but maybe you guys can help lobby so that the food can be moved without having to be in individual cars, because that's the only way to get around this refrigerated truck law. But it's just something to be aware of. That's all.
Yeah, it's a great point, because the food sharing thing is a great idea. There's a lot of very good edible food that should be tried. We should try to feed those who have need. And I know what's going to happen is that the states and the cities are going to focus on this. There will be a lot of grant money that I know will be made available to develop infrastructure for that. So we've got to find a way. It will probably require a lot of refrigeration at facilities, as well as just transportation side of it. But it's a great point. We have a lot of work to do there still, but I'm confident there will be quite a bit of money allocated to figure that out.
Cool. Thank you.
So
Okay.
Kathleen, we should stop, don't you think?
Yes.
I have a quick question. Is that okay?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, you may have answered this. If so, I apologize. What fuels the digester and all of your other big equipment?
What fuels it? Do you mean in terms of
Gas,
feedstock?
electric, like that?
Oh.
How does that?
Well, there's some electric involved, quite a bit of electric to turn those big rotors inside those tanks. Actually, not as much as you might think. We got some very low energy motors for those. We have some gas that we do burn to heat the tanks. The tanks are actually operated at 131 degrees. And we try to maintain that temperature because that's optimal for the bacteria. And we have a very small boiler that boils water, and we circulate it around the tanks just to keep that temperature perfect. But there really isn't much else to it. The gas cleaning side probably has some electrical pumps and things, but it's not all that bad. And so we do consume some electric. We do consume some gas, but we will be producing a whole lot more energy than what is being consumed to make.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
I had one question. Am I unmuted? Anyway, if you can hear me, I've stepped away for just a minute, and this might have been answered, but is there any way that we can access this raw organic fertilizer that's going to be produced? And I apologize if you already addressed this.
Yeah, nope, good question. I didn't answer that one yet, but the material, the digestate that we're creating is aimed for going back into the agricultural fields, but with the city's need for procurement, they have to hit these certain levels or standards. We are going to provide material to each of the cities, and I know they're already talking about how can they make it available to the general public in each community. So likely in Solana Beach and Encinitas, you'll be hearing about probably public works yards or places that will be available on an ongoing basis.
That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about tea bags. I know tea bags are okay. Is the string and tag fine too?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, well, if any of you are inspired or re-inspired to try home composting as a result of all this food sorting we're going to be doing, our next two guests should help tremendously. Christine Schindler and Irina Gronberg of the Seaweeders Garden Club are going to join us to talk about their experiences composting. And we Seaweeders also want to make available to one of you a copy of Let It Rot, a good resource on home composting. So if you're interested in this book, put a note, tell us that you want to rot me in the chat, and we'll put all the names in a hat and pull a winner. And now I'm going to turn my screen over to Christine and Irina.
Just before you do that, Kathleen, if Jim and Christine are still on the line, on behalf of all of us, Jim, thank you for a fabulous presentation. It was clear, understandable, and energizing. We're going to go out there and be advocates to neighbors left and right if they aren't already doing this. Just a wonderful program. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. I'll make one final comment on that note. I really strongly encourage everyone to get involved and do this. You know, my wife, when I brought home my kitchen caddy, when I first started doing this, I showed it to my wife and she says, we're not going to do that. And I said to her, honey, that's not an answer. I said, we got to figure this out. And so we started doing it. And within 2 weeks, she said, you know what, this is easy. I like doing it. We can do this. And we've been doing it ever since. So I really encourage you, just give it a shot. If you have any hesitation whatsoever, give it a shot. You'll enjoy it.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Over to you, Christine and Irina.
All right. So Irina, you're going to go first. I'm going to bring up the slideshow here for the visuals.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I could hear you.
Okay. And you'll send the pictures?
Yes, you should be seeing it now. True?
Yes.
Irina, you need to speak up.
Okay, I'll speak up. And what do I do next? Oh, okay. Here.
Just tell us about how you compost.
Okay. Well, the first thing is to think about why you compost. And this isn't my picture, but this is what my soil looks like. And if you were to enlarge it a little bit, you'd see little eggshells in there. And after how I get the soil, how I get it is my husband put about a 6-8 inch CV piece, what is that, plastic pipe that you use for drainage?
PVC.
And cut a hole in the kitchen counter. So whenever I need to wipe things off that are food, I go to put it down there. I haven't had a garbage disposal for 40 years. It just seemed like throwing good stuff away. If you put this stuff into a composter, into one of those free containers, it just goes and sits in there. And what Jim was saying about alternating, you think of it as kind of greenish and brownish. I have a free standing container over here of leaves that have been blown, and I kind of mix it in. I put soup down there too, and spaghetti sauce, so I don't have to add water. It just stays wet. And there are some mice that come in there. They take little things and they go up to the chicken coop and they sit looking at the chickens while they eat at night. And I've found that's a really good way to keep them out of the house. Because when we first moved here, there was nothing in our yard. It was really quite barren, and there were rats in the attic. But now that we have compost for them, they're happier out here. So it's something to think about. This is what my compost looks like on a daily basis. It's mostly peels and orange peels. This is what the second one looks like. There's no photograph here, but I have 2 of these containers. One for the one that's just rotting and one for the daily collection. I don't enjoy turning compost, and I found that if I have 2 containers, I don't need to turn it. My granddaughter likes to do it, so she does it when she comes over. But what will happen when I'm starting my vegetable garden is I kind of move the stuff on top, slide it away, dig up the compost, put it into my soil, put in the vegetables, and then take the other big thing is the mulch. This garden happens to be near my juniper. And so whenever I sweep after a big wind and there's a lot of juniper leaves on the ground, or leaves, what are they? Needles. It's a very tidy solution to keeping my mulch safe and dry. It's like a little blanket. So I think of it, the compost you dig into the soil, the mulch you put on top, and it seems like I don't throw anything away, but I do. I have things that I would need an acre to save. But what I do is go out with a little bucket that's under here every day, take it out here. And I found I think of the English saying, the best fertilizer are the farmer's footsteps in the field. Because you're out there looking, you don't wait for things to get bad enough to see from the house. And you just take a little walk outside in the morning or in the evening, and it's magic. Look at, there's even worms.
I love your way, Arena. I think if I can add to what she's saying, I mean, certainly this is huge that we're finally catching up to Europe and we're finally having food waste being recovered by our waste hauler. So it's nice that EDCO is finally to this point, and it's exciting, and it's going to be huge for a lot of people. But then there are going to be people like Arena and I and others that just want to keep on composting themselves because you want to use the soil in your garden. You know, you want to just keep it simple. So the other day I heard KISS, keep it simple, sweetie. There's a lot to be said by that. I want to acknowledge that the reason why I'm connected to the Seaweeders, and then how I'm connected to Solana Beach Civic and Historical Society, all started with my friend Roger Boyd in composting. I'm not a gardener. I don't grow flowers. I'm actually starting to do milkweed now that we're more established and I can grow some roots. But composting is what got me involved with this organization. And I love to compost. It's awesome to see how much you can keep out of your trash. People are still going to want to do this regardless of EDCO. You can still do EDCO green waste, food waste, and do your own composting because there's things that you don't want to put in your compost that now you will be able to throw into a green waste bin. So we don't have much time, but I did want to let you know that we have a wonderful local source for getting information about composting. Well, we have our local source in Arena, and I'm not going to send you all over to her house, though she probably would welcome you. Solana Center is in Encinitas, a short drive away. They have fantastic resources, people that know what they're doing. They sell all the materials that you need. They're a local nonprofit. So if you want to get into composting, I want to encourage you to shop local. You know, you can easily get on Amazon and order all this stuff on Amazon, but I would really encourage you to shop local, support Solana Center. They need it more than anything now. And there's a lot of good materials out there. So I just put a few here, Cal Recycle, EPA, some of the books that are out there. I think, Betsy, you have to open up the chat so that people can chat if they're interested in Let It Rot.
Oh, that's
It had been mentioned to go ahead and go in there and add a comment. So we're really short on time, but I do want to show you, there's so many different methods to composting. So Arena has her method. I have my method. You have your method. One thing to think of, if you want to compost, but you don't have the available space or the energy, get a compost buddy. When we first started composting, my friend Marilee McLean really wanted to compost, but she didn't feel like she could do it at home. She brought us her stuff, put it in the freezer, then brought it over to us, threw in our compost bin. We were her compost buddy. Years later, when we didn't have a location where we could compost, I found Chris Wakeham. He became my compost buddy. So it's, where there's a will, there's a way, most definitely. There's a new method called Bokashi. Solana Center has pushed this out there. It's another way that you can compost without having to have a lot of space and materials involved. And then there's also vermicomposting with worms. So some people love worms, some people don't want to do that. But I know like at Solana Beach City Hall, when everybody was working there, they were doing vermicomposting. All their paper towels and kitchen scraps were going to the worms. Just a couple more things I wanted to show you. So this is, it seems like I'm making a plug for Solana Center because I am. They're just easy one-stop shopping for all the things that you need to have. You can do both passive and active composting. You can just put it in a pile and forget about it, or you can put it in 2 piles and have your granddaughter or your husband or yourself do some active shifting around and adding water and making sure you turn it. So because we're short on time, we're really not going to be able to talk about everything, but there's a lot of resources out there. I'll go ahead and shift off the slides show to show you there is this really great guide. So it's CIY. So what's that stand for? Compost it yourself. It's like we can definitely get some of these out for folks. I picked this up at City of Encinitas. I'm sure that City of Solana Beach has them as well. It's so easy. It's not a big hurdle to become a composter, and it's not that hard to do. So if you're doing it now and you continue, bless you. If you want to start it, even with EDCO coming on for food waste, bless you. You can definitely do it, and you have a lot of good resources, including Arena and myself, to help you along the way. Oh, I did that, and it's just 1:02. So way to make up some time, Arena.
Well, thank you, participants in our Lunch and Learn today. Thank you, Christine and Irina, for concluding with this insight into composting resources. So we all know what we're going to do starting this afternoon. Compost.
I think Carol's having us over for lunch now, and then we're going to compost all the leftovers.
Again, thanks everyone, and stay tuned for our program information coming for next month. Bye, everyone.
So wonderful to see you all. Take care, be safe.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Christine. Great to see everybody.
I'm lingering just in case. So was that you that wrote "I love worms"?
That was me. I've been a worm composter for about 17 years.
I feel so closer to you now,
yes.
Now that I know this.
I ordered 1 pound of worms, and I've split it several times and given worms away to preschools and things like that, and they just keep going. And I learned that those red wigglers can live to be several years old, I think. I didn't realize.
And they probably behave better than your kids. No offense to your kids, but I didn't know this about you, but I'm not surprised that you're a big worm. They consume massive amount of food, right?
They do, and I'm a little conflicted. Do I give my food to EDCO, or do I give it to my worms? I mean, the worms come first, but
The worms come first in my house.
Citrus, all the citrus gets to go to EDCO. That's a good thing, and the meat. So
we for many years had the most organic compost in the neighborhood because all our CSA food that we didn't eat went right into compost. It was like, wow, it's the fanciest compost around. So, oh boy, we didn't have much time, but we did the best we could with the time.
You guys did great. Thank you so much.
Great. Ladies, I just want to thank you all. That was fantastic.
It was so fun, so informative.
Have you read EDCO's things that they send in the mail?
Yes,
Yeah.
Really impressive,
very.
Yeah.
really, really exciting, and it beautifully designed and interesting. And
I didn't want to do it, but now they've got me sold. I'm going to order my kitchen caddy.
Yeah, I tried to go on the website to find the link to share it in the chat, but I wasn't able to find it.
You know, it's a little bit buried, but I
Yeah.
found the city provided a deep link directly into the Solana Beach page. So I'll unearth that, and if we
Yeah.
don't, I think we already have it on the website, but we can publish it again. One question came in that we didn't address, and I didn't really know the best way to address it, but maybe we can follow up with the Solana Center, Christine. It was from Adele Josepho, and she asked, she was referring to the EDCO program, the green bin. Will this be a direct substitution for the Bokashi food cycle program?
Yeah, I saw that as well, and I was going to respond. I'm not sure what Solana Center plans to do, because that, a lot of that could be replaced by this EDCO food waste, them expanding and having the digester. Had you reached out to Jessica for today?
I did. She said
Yeah.
she was going to try to have somebody join today. I don't recognize enough names to know if she did.
Yeah, I just for
but
her name.
I'll reach out to her and find out what she thinks on that question.
Because they put a lot of time and energy and money into establishing that, but I'm not sure if they have like sustained grant monies. So with EDCO, they may just call it quits, but they build, huge vessels to put all the bokashi material in, so they built their own little digesters. So they may still stay with it.
Okay, I'll find out, and we can always do that as a follow-up in the newsletter or something.
Yeah, because and then Betsy, I wasn't sure if you were going to capture the chat field. You can click on those 3 dots and you can record the chat.
It's recording. Yep, I'm recording the chat, so we'll have that, and we'll go back and see, and maybe in the newsletter we'll provide answers to them.
Yeah, because I committed you guys to that without asking.
It's okay.
I just want to say it's so good to see some of your faces that I haven't seen so long.
Absolutely. All right. The other thing I wanted to ask, the recording itself, would that be available? Because I'd like to share it with Crystal Najira at City of Encinitas.
Yes. So I just need to I need to download it and trim it, and then we'll post it. We'll get you the link. It may take me a couple days. So
thank you, IT support.
Yes.
Betsy is our tech support. Thank you so much for your conducting this, and Kathleen for the discussions with EDCO. Really,
that was very good.
Very well.
Thank you, Tina, for jumping in. It's always that no matter how many of these things you do, you just need to have more. But we got through the Kathleen problem at the beginning. That was good.
It wasn't just that. EDCO apparently didn't register. At 11:58, I'm getting this email from Chris Spielmacher saying, "When are you going to send us the link?"
Oh gosh.
So I sent them my link, and that's why I couldn't get in.
Yeah, I think we should do one thing that we might want to add into the mix is just sending reminder links on the day of, because I know how hard it is to find things buried in my emails, and
and also there's people.
But does the registration then, when you register, does that generate a unique link per user?
Yes, not unique to each user, but a link.
Yes, a link.
Yeah, but then it gets buried in your email inbox.
I forward all the links that I get. I just continue forwarding them to myself so that they're on top. But I definitely recommend sending it the day of. And I am available to support your Zooms. I've been doing it for 2 bigger groups.
Great. Thanks, Tina.
Fantastic, Tina. Yay.
Woo. Yeah.
And hey, everybody, remember Tina's got a plant and pottery sale coming up this weekend.
Okay.
Starting tomorrow, right?
Yeah, tomorrow after 11 and Saturday 9 to 4 or something.
Okay, great.
So Tina, maybe I will send you an email and
Who are you? Who's saying?
I'm sorry. I'm Solana Beach
Betsy.
Civic. I'm Betsy Walcott. Hi.
Betsy, I never met you.
I don't think we've met.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So I'll send you an email and get you in the loop for the Zoom support.
Sure.
Zoom support.
Cool.
A title that didn't exist before last year.
Yeah.
I'm the Zoom administrator for the Cactus Club.
Well, I got cut out of this meeting because of sharing my link. It kept telling me, you've already signed into this meeting on another device. And so I'm shutting all my devices down and going, what? And then I finally figured out it was Christine and then the EDCO people. Anyway.
Well,
Thank
I'm
you.
glad I'm glad you
Great
connected
Yeah.
with the EDCO people at least, and we got them on.
We got them.
Yeah, that was
sorry, I kinda-
fantastic.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, take care,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
See you
Bye.
guys.
Bye.
See you next
Good.
time.